right,
I
welcome.
see people joining.
Welcome.
Welcome, Tug.
Happy March. Happy St. Patty's Day, everybody.
Yes.
So excited for
So
today.
this week had a lot of little holidays, not just St. Patrick's Day, because we had Pi Day on the 14th. And then the 15th, does anyone know what the 15th was?
The Ides of March.
It was! Good job, Brutus.
Exactly. Not celebrated by people named Julius, but celebrated by others.
No, I think what I learned in high school English class, and Nancy may have had some of the same teachers I did. I learned that there's Ides of every month. It has to do with, I think, the moon. I'm not sure.
I did not know
Just
that.
the 15th or whatever. I don't know.
No, I could be wrong.
Underthink it.
It's something that I wanted to Google and I never did. So maybe somebody in chat knows who can Google that for me because I'm sharing my screen.
Yeah.
We used to stab. Do you remember?
But today, oh, sorry, say it again.
We used to stab. I forgot the English professor. The older English professor, the Latin club. I was part of it. We would stab him every Ides of March. So, but
So
then,
you took Latin. I took German.
oh, that's right.
So St. Patrick's Day is today, speaking of all the things going on this week, although Pi Day is probably my favorite of the week. I don't know what your plans are for St. Patrick's Day. Feel free to put it in the chat. Mine's a rest day from running. So that's
You take rest days?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
For those of y'all that don't know, Anna probably runs in a given week like 80 miles or something.
No, not in a given week.
Something crazy. It's crazy. It's more than most people drive, definitely nowadays.
That is a true statement.
I mean, that's
definitely
I'm
more than I
serious.
drive in a week.
Yeah.
And she does what, 75-mile races?
Yeah, I haven't done it yet.
Race goes into air quotes on that point at that point.
I haven't done it yet.
75 miles?
I haven't done it yet. So we put it out in the universe. It's going to happen. It's a week from Saturday is the Georgia death race. So
And at the Davis
Death
household,
race. She said Georgia death race.
yeah. When death is in the name of the competition,
It's hardcore.
At the Davis household, we have a phrase. It's called champions finish. I think that would be like, finishing would be akin to absolute and total success in that
Yes.
exercise.
Yes.
I am not racing. I want to finish. That's it.
Love it.
I'm going to slide into home when I get to, it ends at Immokalee. So if anyone wants to hang out at Immokalee at like 6 a.m. Sunday, the 27th. Then
I put the link in the chat.
oh my gosh.
To be clear, like, does sleeping in a bed at Immokalee at 5 or 6 a.m. count for hanging out, or is
Yeah.
it?
No judgment here.
I can be there for that.
All right.
We're being prompted to start.
So I guess we should talk about what we're going to be talking about, because that's what a good host would do, right? Today we are going to be talking to some amazing women in tech and data world. We are celebrating Women's History Month of March. As you probably knew, it was a couple weeks ago was International Women's Day, and we always every year in our Atlanta Tableau user group like to come together and have this conversation and really kind of open up the floor to ask questions that you may not usually ask. Also to think about things, because this is, by the way, not just for women, but this is ways for if you're female in the tech industry, or you want to be in this industry and you want to find out more, well, how did somebody else do it? Or what questions could I ask to find out the next step? Or if you are a champion of women, so non-woman, but you champion somebody, your wife, your friend, your coworkers who are in the same space as you, and you want to help boost them up while they're working in this space that is male dominated, that please just feel free to ask questions and just listen to what the women in our panel have to say about their journey and their experiences, and just know that not everyone's experience is the same. Everyone's quiet. So I will let everyone introduce themselves, but I would first like to point out that our beautiful, lovely, intelligent, hilarious co-host Karen Hinson is actually on our panel today. So we'll be asking her questions instead of forcing her to ask the questions. See if I can advance the slide here. Oops, there we go. All right. And as we're kind of getting into this, let's think about, we talked last month about Tableau conference. Nelson, do you have any comments on, you're going to be there?
I will be there with bells on, and I welcome anybody on this meeting and all of their friends to join me. And I think, Karen, I believe you're going as well. And Jennifer, you were just saying this is going to be your first conference. And I don't know if you're going to make it, but Tableau conference is a thing to behold. So if you've never been, definitely encourage you. The seats are going fast. There are only 5,000 folks who are going to have the opportunity to be there. And so it's in Vegas. It's the same week as the Alteryx conference. So if you are house divided on those two platforms, then I'm not sure what you're going to do. But definitely excited. I think it's going to be awesome. It'll be my...
Say it again.
I was about to say, like, I was going to try to count up real quick, like, my first conference was 2013. So in theory, I went to the virtual one. So in theory, this is my 10th, which makes me old. So I don't know.
Jennifer, Dee, Nancy, Karen, anyone on the panel, are you going to the Tableau conference?
Yes, I will be there. I'm very, very excited.
Love it. So fun.
Yes, I will be there as well. First conference, so I'm very excited.
Oh, exciting.
I got my ticket the other day.
You're going.
I'm gonna go. I wasn't sure this year, but I am gonna go. I haven't missed an in-person conference since 2015. And I don't know about like a lot of you guys, but I feel like they've done their best virtually these last few years, to make it fun and engaging, but a virtual conference just isn't the same. And so I'm really looking forward to just like connecting with people, and I look forward to it every year. It just feels like you get to see, I've gotten to know people in the community. It's a great way to like make those connections and like reconnect with people and have these conversations. It's really fun.
I will be here, but if anyone, we're still gonna throw out the idea that we might possibly have a meetup or something for those of us who are staying in Atlanta for whatever reason. I can't make it that week. If it was any other week in May, I could have gone, but that week I couldn't. So we're just gonna make the best of it and enjoy the virtual side of it, and hopefully get to fellowship in person somewhere in the Atlanta area. So. All right. So tomorrow, double checking my watch. Oh, I told you there's like something important every single day this week. And tomorrow's big thing is if you submitted for Iron Viz, or if one of your coworkers did. I know I have coworkers that did submit Iron Viz entries. The announcements for the results is tomorrow. So really exciting. And it is virtual, so you can be a part of that. And upcoming meetings in April. We've got, and I don't know if anyone else has anything to say about what these people are going to do next month, because I literally just found out yesterday. So if you have any more comments on, but I know Jared is prepping data, Mr. Tableau Prep. And Brian has some dashboard design tips. Any other feedback on, or is this going to be a big surprise?
They're going to love these. I think Tableau Prep has grown a bunch. And so I think what it's capable of surprises people these days. So Jared definitely going to dig into that. And then I think dashboard design is super awesome. So anytime anybody wants to come in and dig into aesthetics and user experience and making things look amazing, I love it. So Brian.
Yeah. And with
Right.
dashboard design, if you've been around the Tableau community or just visualization community for any amount of time, you've noticed how best practices keep shifting and recommendations have changed. And honestly, it's always good to have your finger on that pulse. This is why I don't like the word best practice. If you know me, you know I hate the term best practices, because they should be best practice until there's a better one, right? And so I love this. So if you've seen anything with dashboard design and then suddenly it's been 2 years, you're probably going to learn something.
Be awesome. Woohoo! Here we go.
All right, for today. Well, we are going to take a moment to let all of those on the panel introduce themselves, a little bit about yourselves, and just tell us and everybody listening what you're doing right now, and a little bit about where you came from, and then we'll start with the panel questions after we talk to everyone. So we'll start with Dee. Dee, I'll let you unmute and you can introduce yourself.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Dinushki de Livera, but that's a lot harder than D, so everyone just calls me D. I am a business analyst at Unifund. I work with some Tableau legends like Kevin Flerledge and Jeff Schaefer. I'm a Tableau ambassador as of this year, so yay, that was very exciting. And I'm also the co-founder of Her Data with Jennifer Dawes. It's not in her bio, but it should be. But yeah, that's a little bit about me. And I've been using Tableau now for about 5 years. Wow, yes.
That's awesome.
Great.
Thanks
Well,
for the plug there, Dinushki. Hi, everybody. I'm Jennifer Dawes. I'm here in Cincinnati as well. Previously did work with the legends that Dinushki speaks of and herself. It's also a lot of fun for me to be a part of these talks with Dinushki, because she's actually the one that brought me to Tableau and the one that helped me make that career leap. My background is actually in human resources. So I previously had a career in human resources. My master's is in human resources. But now I am a BI and analytics specialist with JLL, and our team has been growing left and right over the last couple of months. It's been a really exciting team to be a part of. I'm also a Tableau ambassador this year, which has been really fun. And yeah, that's all.
Nancy, go ahead. Oh, you're on.
You're mute.
There you go.
I normally don't do that. I'm like, wow, I got caught. My name is Nancy Joy. I have a background in bioengineering, and I kind of just fell into regulatory affairs and fell in love with it. I'm currently a regulatory affairs manager at Terumo Medical Corporation. It's a Japanese-based company. Our U.S. headquarters is in New Jersey, and my CEO went to UGA, so he likes to give me a hard time because I went to Georgia Tech. But I love what I do in engineering and regulatory.
Awesome. We're glad you're here. All right, Karen, bring us home.
Hey everyone. For those of you that have been attending ATUG for a while, you may know me. My name is Karen Hinson. I've been an ATUG member now for, I guess, 9 years just about, and have been a co-leader of ATUG for the last 3 years almost. I worked for Chick-fil-A in Atlanta, and I started at Chick-fil-A in 2013 and was one of the very first at Chick-fil-A to start using Tableau. So I've been using Tableau since 2013, and I enjoy it. I feel really lucky to have kind of like found a career and a company that I work for that's just like, I really enjoy coming to work every day. And I feel like a lot of people, that's pretty rare.
Love it. All right, Anna, if you're ready, let us jump in.
Yeah, I stopped sharing my screen. Hopefully we can actually see the people that are talking, not just a little tiny little picture. y'all can share your video. And what we're going to do is Nelson and I are going to tag team here with some questions. We want to start with the journey. It's because, I mean, the journey is so important, right? And take joy in the journey, right, Nelson?
That's right.
We want to kind of talk about not just where you are now, but kind of where you've been and other things that would help out somebody who's listening, and also kind of might jostle a question from somebody in the audience. So I'm going to start talking to Nancy. By the way, Nancy and I went to high school together. We are from, can I tell people? We went to Oconee County High School outside of Athens. And I always thought of Nancy as, oh my gosh, she's so smart. I was never the math person in high school. I never thought I knew, like, and then I got to college and went, wait, I like math. But she was always in like the more advanced math classes than I was. So I look at her as I'm like, oh, she's a genius when it comes to engineering and tech. So I thought she'd be a great person to talk to. As I take that away from you, now I'm going to actually ask you a question. And so I really want to know, and we hadn't seen each other in a very long time, so this is really cool to see each other. But I want to know personally, and I think everyone else would want to know this, what type of work you're doing earlier in your career, because I know you've made some jumps here. And the second part of that question is if there's anything you wish you knew years ago when you were first starting out.
Definitely. Okay, so well, I was a victim, I call myself a victim of medical school tunnel vision. Because, you know, if you like, I loved biology, I love math, love science. So it's kind of like, okay, do you want to become a medical doctor or do you want to go get your PhD and teach at a university, right? Like that was like option A or B, right? And unfortunately, that followed me even into college, where I'd have professors say, which path do you want to go? And so I actually went to Agnes Scott College, liberal arts women's college. So engineering was not something that was really talked about, even though, you know, they've tried to promote women everywhere, right? But that was still just not something talked about. And so I went all the way through the MCATs, medical school interviews, it's going down that path. And then I started to realize I don't do well when people die, and sick people tend to die. So I was like, maybe not the best of paths. And fortunately, I had a college friend contact me from Georgia Tech, and she said, hey, she's like, this career field is perfect for you over here in bioengineering. She's like, I know you. She's like, you get too emotionally attached to patients. Come over here and make medical devices to make them better, instead of having to deal directly with, you know, the horrors of what you see in the medical field. So I thought, hey, let me check it out, and started getting into it, and I just fell in love with it. And so then after I got my degree, it was kind of one of those things where I'm at Georgia Tech defending my master's degree. And I had someone from Johnson & Johnson approach me, and he said, well, now that you're done, he's like, you have California or you have New Jersey, pick one. And I was like, I can't believe that's like my two options, but this is 2004. He's like, those are your two options. He's like, I'm only in Atlanta because I'm retired and I'm consulting. So it's like, okay. So it worked out. I took a job in New Jersey for a human tissue bank, which sounds really weird. When people pass away and they donate their body, we recycle their bone, basically, and their corneas. And I didn't really work in the organ section, but more bone, skin, and cornea. So I fell into regulatory affairs, and I thought, well, it's like, okay, this is interesting. I was looking at clinical, regulatory, you name it, anything in that type of thing, and regulatory just came about. And I worked in it for a year, and it just, everything just clicked. I was like, I think I found my spot. And I've been in that ever since. And I did take a break between my job at MTF and where I currently work at Teramo. I decided to come home and be a mom for, see how many years, I lost track of time. I think 7 years. I was consulting both for MTF and other organizations in between, which was awesome because I was able to attend to the kids and keep myself updated with the industry, with FDA, with the European regulations, with Canada. So it was the best of both worlds for me, and I'm glad I did that. And my current job came from an old colleague who they had a position open, and because the world has gone remote, you can find talent anywhere, right? So they called me up. They said, hey, I just moved back to Atlanta. They said, don't move back to New Jersey. We'll take you remote. So that was amazing to me. So I'm super happy that everything just fell together, right career, and able to work from where I want to too. So that's been a huge blessing.
Is there anything that you wish you knew before that
Oh,
you
yes.
know now?
Sorry, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yes, I wish I known, like I said. So yeah, that was, if you're good in, and you love science, you love math, the options were so limited. And I think some of that is bias, like, that, you're a woman, so these are the easiest paths for you, maybe. I shouldn't say easiest, but the most followed paths. I wish I'd had a lot more exposure, and I'm actually working with my daughter's school here. They go to Soap Creek in Marietta. I'm very vocal about speaking to the kids. I just spoke to them last week, actually, and said, hey, there's other things. There's engineering, there's all kinds of things in technology and in math. I was like, don't limit yourself. And, sure enough, I started getting questions about my, medical studying. And because even in 5th grade, they see that path, right? They don't see too much, although one child brought up to me, he's like, I've seen 3D printing and I'm really interested in that. So they're starting to see more stuff at an earlier age. I just wish, during my time that there'd been more exposure for that, right? But I'm glad I did eventually find my path. So
I totally get that. I think math teacher was, I think, the only thing on my list when I thought, well, I like math, so math teacher.
Right, yeah.
Well, and Nancy, I just realized that if your kids go to Soap Creek, we're basically like neighbors, because mine are districted for Mount Bethel. So we'll meet up
cool.
at the Longhorn later, and
definitely
be great. Dee, I am super excited to speak with you. One of the things that you're very magnetic in the 10-15 minutes we've had the opportunity to interact, and I can totally get, like, you're Tableau ambassador, you're doing some amazing things, working with amazing people. I can imagine that somebody might look at you and kind of say, her career's been up and to the right, it's been very linear, very direct. If your career's been anything like mine, it has had ups, downs, ins, outs, all over the places. And so you kind of said earlier, you got into Tableau and data about 5 years ago. And so I'm curious, like, what was the inflection point for you where you're like, oh, that's cool. I really want to learn more about that. I see cool things happening. Like, was there an event or a moment, or like, was it gradual? And kind of like, what were you doing before it that kind of opened you up into this world?
Yeah, I actually have a very clear turning point in my career. So I'm from Sri Lanka, which is on the other side of the planet. And I came to the US for college, and I wanted to get into economic development. That was what I was interested in. And the plan was, to get my econ bachelor's, and then go back home after 4 years and start doing some economic development projects for my country. And then I was like, oh, you know what? I'm here. I've done my 4 years here. My dad wants me back home, but you know what? I'll just stay a couple of more years, get a master's, and then go back home. So I stayed, did my master's in applied economics, again, going more into what I wanted to do. And I started learning predictive modeling and all this kind of thing. So perfect. We're in line, stay focused. And then I did a data visualization class with Jeffrey Schaefer. And I was like, holy cow, wait a second. Like, I get to do my, analyze with numbers, which is what I love to do. But I also get to be creative and use my sense of design and style as well, which is also something that I love to do, but never really thought that that would be something that I could incorporate in my career, because, when you're from that part of the world, you are taught to either be an engineer, a doctor, or, something ridiculously amazing. Anyway, so I was like, okay, wait a second, like this career, if I did choose it, I would be able to work with numbers and also be able to create and be, use my sense of design and style. And that was like my little magical experience of data visualization entering my life. And then someone said, hey, there's an opportunity at this place called Unifund that's actually run by your professor, Jeff Schaefer, who taught you to visualize. And I was like, stop, I'm going for the interview right now. So now I work with Tableau and data visualization every single day, and I don't regret that at all.
Love that. It's so cool.
Yeah.
Well, I have the next question for Jennifer. I'm excited to talk to you, Jennifer. I haven't seen you in a while. I'm bummed I'm not going to see you at Tableau conference, but you can
another time
take lots of pictures and let me know how it goes.
We
And
need to like do a live TikTok so everybody can feel like we're there. Anyway.
I love it. That's so great. So and that's funny because my kids always talk about TikTok and I'm like, I don't know what this thing is. Okay, so coming back to data and being in the tech field, and a little bit kind of bringing this back to more of a in what you've seen in the tech field. I can only speak for myself because I've seen a lot of disparity from men versus women. I've seen it in education. I've seen it in obviously in tech, and I've seen it everywhere. But I'm curious your thoughts of first of all, with what you've seen, how much of that would you say is due to women not advocating for ourselves versus like other external factors?
Yeah, I actually really love this question. I think it kind of piggybacks on, the HR career that I built before and now actually working in the industry, because I kind of had the outside and the inside perspective. And I will say there is a disparity, and I think it comes for a number of reasons. I don't know that it's necessarily because women aren't advocating for themselves, because I see rock star women and I want to be one of them. But it's kind of piggybacking on maybe something that Nancy touched on that's a big passion point for me. I think it's exposure. And I think it's those traditional norms. Growing up, Dinushki talked about her family and their ideas for her. Well, growing up for me, they were just like, high school, that would be good. I grew up in a very traditional family, and my dad was like, I don't know, you could be a secretary. So I think exposure is a big, big deal. And that piggybacks maybe on other questions, but thinking about like, if you can see it, you can be it. And so it's not just women advocating for themselves. Okay, sorry. Sorry, that scared me. It's not just women advocating for themselves, but I think it's collectively, we all kind of take ownership of that, right? Women and men advocating for diversity, because I think it's a responsibility that we all have. To be able to provide that exposure, to provide that encouragement. And like I said before, Dinushki's the one that brought me into the data visualization world. She brought me to Tableau because I think it was like, okay, look at her, look at this role that she's in. I want that. Why can't I have that? So yeah, I think it's a mixture of things to me. Sorry about the cat.
They want to know if your cat is a flying cat.
No, but it feels like I'm living in a farmhouse here. I had to go off camera for a dog and then the cat. Thankfully, the kids aren't here. I'm sorry. I'm focusing the best. Sorry.
4 kids, dog, and cat. Is there anything else we should know about?
It's 2 cats, a dog, 4 kids, a husband, and I'm moving. I want to move. It's a busy house, but I think like
you're not
my
busy at
grandma
all, are you?
always said, busy people do busy things. Like busy people can do a lot of things. And I totally believe that. I was telling a friend the other day, I'm digressing, but like, I think the more responsibility and the more that you take on, the more you realize you're able and you're capable, because almost anything can become normal. And it maybe does kind of piggyback into this conversation, because like you can create your own norms, you can have chaos and be successful. So
it's like a muscle, right?
I think so.
Flex that
I really
muscle,
do.
the stronger that muscle gets.
Yes.
I feel like you could write a book and I would pull every quote out and put it on my refrigerator. That was amazing.
Oh,
And
I
you
love
have
it.
4
I'll write a
kids
book next
under
year. Okay.
5.
Yeah, so we have 2 sets of twins. Sorry. 2 sets of twins. They're just turned 5 and just turned 2. And I would love to feel like the queen of this house, but it is not the case. The 2-year-olds are in full control right now. they run the house. I mean, but it's fun.
Superhero.
Stories already.
Yeah, they're the reason that I think I do push. You know what I mean? Like they're like someone's reason to not do something is someone else's reason to do something. Well, they're the reason. Like it's busy, it's chaotic, but I have to, right? It's got 4 kids running around.
I think I can speak for myself, but I'm sure a lot of us on the panel can attach to what all of you said about your journey, and it just coming from the point of view as you're a female and stepping out and what are those roles. I definitely felt like, okay, well, it could be this or this there. And the idea, of course, when I graduated college and even high school, I mean, data science wasn't a thing. No one, I've said this before when I started my job in DC when I was in 2000 and I was working in analytics, but no one said the word analytics. Like that wasn't even a word. So in some ways, because of the world changing and demands in this space are kind of new, right? Like that would be one aspect of we didn't have those options, but there was definitely a feeling of we had limited ideas of what a woman could be. And that I really connect to that as well. I didn't know if anyone else on the panel, as we talked about those different questions in that Nancy's answered and that Dee and that Jennifer have talked about, if anyone else had something else to circle back on, just before we begin the next chapter of our conversations.
I feel like I love what Nancy said, but to expand on that whole idea is like, I think I wish personally in the high school and college level that more individuals understood you don't have to know exactly what that is. And there are no mistakes. Like part of my conversation early on with Jeff Schaefer and Dinushki and Kevin was my fear to abandon my HR career. Like I'm abandoning my education. And I worked so hard for that. And I was so proud of that. Who am I to like go switch careers? There are no mistakes. Like, I think that just brings a different layer of who you are. You can have more than just one element of yourself. You can be the data analyst, the mom. You can also have that HR background. And every time I talk, what is your problem? I think it brings diversity. I'm done. I think it's good. I think our differences are good. I'll finish there.
That cat.
He wants to listen to you. You're inspiring.
I guess this is any call I've ever been on has never happened. I'm sorry.
Cat wants to join ATUG. I respect it. So we're going to shift now into kind of working in the data field and the current season that you're in. And so, there are folks in kind of different industries and doing different things. And Nancy, I know you are definitely in the technology field, but you don't use Tableau on a daily basis. But you've spoken to the fact of like, hey, this is really interesting how I got here, the things that have attracted me to the role that I'm in. And so I'd love if you could just like tell us a little bit more about those specific things, and then just like what is it about this that has ultimately kind of lit you up, that allows this to be kind of a passion project for you. I always love the idea of, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And so talk to us about kind of what is it that you enjoy about what you're doing in this season.
So I would say I love things where you constantly have to learn and you constantly get a new challenge, right? You get something that is just, it's like a climbing a mountain, you're like, this is impossible. I don't know, how to get about this. And so I love a good challenge, and I like to constantly have to be learning and developing myself and research. I love to research. I spend a great deal of time reading, what FDA has planned for regulations, and I love challenging them on it too. I mean, I've had people in my field will end up becoming attorneys because they just love the battle with FTAs. I don't see myself going that far, but I do love just trying to understand how our government does things and why they do things, and learning some of the background behind certain regulations. And I get to look at data from a clinical perspective. We just completed a very large clinical trial, and I'm just amazed what you can pull from data. That within the last year, I've gained so much respect for data and statistics, and it's just impressive what we can learn from gathering data. We can save lives. We can prevent deaths from devices that are harmful. I mean, it's just it's outstanding.
Love that. I'm curious, like, as you think about that, what are the data sources that you're pulling and like that are giving you that information, and like what are you doing to analyze that? And not the 15-minute version of that of the answer to that question, but like the short one.
Right. So our data would come from IRBs, review boards at hospitals. So I believe we only did within the United States, but many different locations throughout the United States, and they come together, and it's not just the data from their patients, but it's also the background on their patients. Like maybe they have a patient who's diabetic, or maybe they have a patient over a certain age, or so there's all these factors. You have to somehow put them together to tell FDA a story. And it's amazing with all of the technology we have today to analyze the data, how nicely it gets wrapped up for me. And then I'm able to tell FDA story. Diabetic patients had a higher survival rate with my device, or patients over 65 had great outcomes. I'm just able to wrap it up so nice and neatly, and not even have to, I've seen the raw data, but I don't even have to look at it. It's all, put together so nicely that I'm able to present it to FDA, and FDA is like, oh, he's like, done, approved. This is a device that has many benefits and very low risk for the American population. So go ahead, sell it. So that's impressed me a lot.
That's awesome. That is data storytelling at its finest right there, ladies and gentlemen. Awesome.
Amazing. I can't wait to pick your brain later. We're gonna go to the playground.
We have
let
to
the
meet
kids
up.
play, and I'm gonna ask you more about this. This is so cool. Karen, I have a question for you, my sweet friend. Again, I was so excited to say, Karen, can you be on the panel this year? So many people have questions for you, I'm sure. And so again, y'all feel free to jump in with any questions in Q&A, and we're going to get to those at the end too. Karen, in your experiences, are there differences in the professional lives of women versus men? Like just point blank, what have you seen, and what stands out to you the most? And after you get that part of the question out of the way, this is kind of a multi-part question. I also want to know, as you're talking about that, if you have advice for other people navigating this.
Sure. So are there differences in terms of the professional lives? I'll answer it this way. I feel like behavior, if you're looking at like the behavior of men versus women at work, I don't know that I see like major differences. I've read like the nice girls don't get the corner office and books like that. And I do think there's perhaps something to those theories about like women maybe not wanting to come off too assertive or too aggressive. And perhaps I remember reading that, and it really did make me think, like that could be ingrained in us as girls. So there's something there perhaps, but at the same time, I don't know that I see a lot of like women sabotaging their own careers like unintentionally by not advocating for them. I don't personally see that, but I will say this, like I just think our personal lives, like it isn't possible as a human for the choices that you make in your personal life, whether you have a family, if you're caring for children or elderly parents or whatever you have going on outside of work, it naturally like impacts your professional life, whether people like realize it and recognize it or not. And so that to me is the greatest difference, the most stark difference between men and women is really more tied to the fact that like we have very different like personal lives and responsibilities at home. And I think this leads to all sorts of things. Like for those of you who were at ATUG last March, when we did this type of panel and we had like presentations like this, I kind of talked about, I remember sharing a viz that I had built about like the gender pay gap. But one thing in that viz was like, well, part of the reason there's a gender pay gap is women make different choices of careers. You know, you see more women becoming a nurse, you see more women becoming teachers, and that pays different than, you know, a biomedical engineer or whatever, all these other things that are more perhaps men. But sometimes I think even the choices of careers, it's like, if you know that you want a family and you know that like in time you will wind up with several children. I know my mom was a teacher. The kid thing factored so much into being a teacher. She wanted to be off when we were off, and she was with us every single summer. And so I know personally, like for me, I think I have 4 children, and just having a family has probably impacted my career in ways that like I may not even be able to quantify. I mean, I have had to leave, and this is no one's fault. Like this is just, but it just is reality. It's still like a truth. It's 4 different times in my 30s, I left for 3 months at a time. And then when I came back, like, I hope this isn't like TMI or whatever, but I would like, think about this though. I would disappear for like every 2 or 3 hours with the bag to go pump for literally like 6 or 9 months. Like I literally can remember, and thank God those days are behind me now. But like, seriously, this happened 4 different times. And you just think about how many meetings, how many things you were involved in where you just get up and leave. And how many times you were in the middle of a project and you're putting that aside and like going to do something else. And again, this is like, no one's fault. It's like, I'm not saying, oh, it's unfair to be, you know, it isn't, but it is something that I think is definitely a big difference, you know, that women versus men.
I think that's an important point to bring up. And I don't think it's TMI at all, because I think people need to understand that. I almost think that I have a flip situation with, when I was teaching, I made the choice to be a teacher for the same reason your mom did. I wanted to be home during those breaks, and well, we won't get into how that actually doesn't work anymore, but because of all the work the teachers have to do now, more work. But when the whole pumping thing, I couldn't leave to go. There was no way I could actually leave work. So instead of my choice to feed my children naturally, actually was forced that I had to not do that, because I could only pump during my lunch or my planning period. There's no way I could have put my job in front of, that need in front of my job. Like there's no way you can leave the classroom. You can't do it right there.
No, I get it. So, I don't know about you guys, but I literally know other women who like have had kids recently who have chosen not to attend TC or like an Alteryx conference just because it's such a hassle. You know, you think about it and it's just like, oh gosh, I'm still pumping, and so like I don't want to have to like, you know, worry about how to go find a room or somewhere. And it's definitely one of those things that like people, you know, you don't always think about, but it's something that and perhaps again, we don't all realize how much that could potentially impact somebody's career, and maybe they don't even know.
If I may say one quick thing to that, I think where it becomes monetized and a big deal, because I think that is a big deal, Karen. One of the previous employers that I won't mention that I worked for had policy where we had an annual bonus that was calculated on the hours worked for the year, and same with our merit. So think about that, right? You're going out on a maternity leave. Your bonus is going to be calculated against hours worked. So if you're going to take 6 weeks, that's less 6 weeks you're getting. If you're going to take 12 weeks, so then you start to really have to sit there and make hard choices of, do I need to be home? Do I want to be home? But what at the end of the day am I costing myself? Because that's going to be inevitably. So we talk about this pay gap. It's a self-perpetuating problem when you have bad policy that disparately treats men and women differently when men aren't taking the maternity leave. sorry, I could go on this topic, but I just feel like
No,
it is
that's a
big
great
deal.
point. Yeah.
But and as somebody who is in the process of building policy / this is how we do it here, rules and organization, because we affectionately say around here, you know, we're flying this airplane and building it at the same time. And so, you know, these are the things that, you know, as we've thought about primary leave and secondary leave, we're thinking about like, how do we prorate this so that it doesn't cost somebody, you know, in financial ways, because they had a choice to have kids, which is, I have 4, so I'm very for it. They're not 3-year-olds. 3-year-olds are terrors. So, okay. So, want to bring this back. D, I'm super interested. I loved what you talked about a minute ago, the journey. I love kind of how you found yourself in just the right moment, just the right people, just the right organization. Super cool. Talk about some of the unexpected challenges. Like, you know, did you run into any brick walls? Did you find that, you know, there were obstacles that you faced that you would love to kind of bring to light that others might be able to learn from you, and kind of maybe how you dealt with 1 or 2 of those or learnings and whatnot?
Yeah. First off, I have to say, I love that this panel has all these powerful moms. I am not a mom yet, but like seeing all of this, I just know I have like a clear path and these like boss women to follow. So thank you all, like moms, you guys are literal superheroes. Anyway, back to my question. So yes, unexpected challenges. So when I was in grad school, I had a job that I was on a team with 5 other guys. And when we would have these weekly meetings, we would discuss, you know, what projects we would be taking on and whatnot. So we would sit down at this round table, and some of the first things that went out were, hey, we have a volunteer opportunity. Can someone plan this for us? I would put my hand up. For one, no one else is putting their hand up, and I would, because, you know, I like event planning. Hey, we would like to organize a happy hour. Would someone like to take on that? Yeah, I like happy hour, and I'm really good at planning, and sure, I'll do that. So now my hands are full. And now the next stuff is the project. So, hey, we have a project for a new client who wants to take this on. Everyone puts their hand up. My hands are like, I've already got plenty of things to do. I'm organizing like 5 parties now. And you know, and already the project has been taken by a guy or whoever. So as this went on towards the end of the year, we count, you know, who has done what and whatnot. And I have planned like 50 parties, but I've only, you know, taken on so much work, whereas other people have that much more experience and projects under their belt. And I thought to myself, like, this is not what I want to do. This is, I want to be the person that takes those risky jobs, those big projects. And now I work at Unifund, and our analytics team has 5 guys in it, and I'm the only woman. And I do take on those big opportunities. Now I do take on the risky projects. And guess what? I also organize the happy hours and the lunches, because I like to do that, and I can do both. So I feel like some women, and this is not all women, of course, but, you know, in a general, they try to lean into more administrative tasks in the data world, which is not a bad thing at all. But I would encourage you to stand up for those big opportunities, stand up for those big projects, because that is how you are going to, you know, grow and learn more. But you don't have to sacrifice some of those admin jobs too, but give some of those admin jobs to the guys as well. You know, we can all do it. We might be able to do it better, but, you know, it's fine. So yeah, so those are just some, and I never thought that I would run into that challenge, you know, but it just so happens.
I love that. That's super helpful.
Yeah, I think that's, I don't think we say that enough to ourselves and to each other. Like, you can do this, just because you haven't done it before doesn't mean it can't be done and you can't do it. I have a question for Karen. As we're kind of transitioning from our journey and then from working into our field and now looking towards the future, what we're going to start thinking about what kinds of things that we can be doing to, and this kind of Dee's answer kind of transitioned to this very well, what we can do for women in data to champion each other and help ourselves as well. So my question is to Karen. I know Karen has a great answer for this one too. COVID has impacted women in terms of the careers disproportionately more than men. What can we do to revive the economy and women's roles? And by the way, let me say that I just made a statement that you can also argue with. I am the type of person who poke holes in my statement, but I would say, based on the data, COVID has impacted women based on careers disproportionately more than men. But what can we do to revive the economy and women's role in it? And then what can we do? Well, that's again another big question here. But
sorry, go ahead.
What do we also want as from help from our counterparts? Like, what would we ask from our counterparts as we're all trying to work together to improve this?
Yes. So COVID really highlighted that, like, in the absence of childcare, at least one parent must step back to care for children. And I know that's kind of like, duh, but it's just like, wow, that was so, it just highlighted that fact. And I'll just say that I recognize, COVID impacted us all differently. So we probably all have all these examples in our head of like, oh, I know someone where this happened, but I'm just going to share from like my personal experience. So I know plenty of women whose careers were like uprooted during COVID, like these last few years, due to school closures and lack of childcare. Now, me personally, I certainly know men who lost their jobs. Like, I even had a family member, my brother-in-law, it took him about a year to find a new job. But I don't know a single man who was forced out of work due to school closures and lack of childcare. That's just like me, of all the people that I know, like in my sphere. And then just like a little about what happened for us, like with my family, I don't know of another time, and hopefully I never will. I worked around the clock in 2020 and 2021. I've never felt more busy at work. When you think about like what COVID could have done to our business, and so many questions. I'm in financial services at Chick-fil-A. So there were questions swirling constantly. And I do data and analytics around like our budget and making our plan. And like everybody for quite a while was like, are we going to have to cut the budget? How far do we have to cut? I mean, it was crazy. So I was working at night, constantly trying to work when the kids were asleep, because our daycare closed for a year, it was closed. So that left me at the time with a 1 and a 3-year-old home with me without daycare. It took us a while to find somebody who could come to the house. Eventually we did. But we also had 2 elementary school students at home. And my kids are so they're like my best friends. I mean, I have a really tight family and my kids mean the world to me. I mean, I'm sure you guys are all of you who are moms, you know what I'm talking about. So I quickly realized, I know this was also like different for everyone, but they needed my help. Like at the time, 2nd and 3rd grader, or 1st and 2nd, whenever it started, they needed help. They couldn't use a computer the way they were sort of being asked to. And I just kind of quickly realized that if they were going to learn how to read and learn how to multiply and divide, like I had to do it. Like it was going to be up to me. It was going to take a major effort on my part, and it did. And to this day, and probably forever, it will always be like one of my proudest accomplishments. Just the fact that I helped them. Like I see how well they've done over the last year when we were doing school together. and it's like one of those quiet things, like no one's ever going to pat you on the back for that. Like no one at work is ever going to have any clue of like, hey, in addition to you working at night until like 8 or 9 or 10 or 11 or whatever, it's like, you also taught your kids how to read. Like you also like, but it's like, and anyway, so that's always, it's just one of those cool things that I guess is just like kind of, I don't know. But anyway, what can we do about this to revive the economy? So one quick thought there. I'm sorry if I'm just like babbling. I think the biggest thing that stands out to me here is working from home. I read recently a great article. It was about this. I know like it seems like every company has a different take on this, but I think there's a lot of companies where the executives have this opinion or this bias. Sorry. The lights in here there they go. Okay. They're like motion detect. Anyway. Okay. So, it feels like executives sometimes have this bias towards like, let's get together in person, let's collaborate. They're worried about culture and those things are fine to like worry about. And there's obviously like something to that. But I also think this article I was reading was saying like, it's easy to stress the importance of those things like culture and collaboration over flexibility when you're not in a 2-person working parent family with 4 kids. If you are, or if, you know what I mean? I think if an executive of a company had to deal with what my husband and I have dealt with over the last 2 years, maybe they would recognize the flexibility, the freedom that gives working moms, how loyal those people will be to their company if their company is just willing to allow some of that. I think that is one thing that people could do like immediately to bring women back and keep them and retain the best people.
I completely agree. And I think that there definitely needs to be an expectation that there's going to be a line between work and family. I happen to work for a company who does a great job understanding that. So I don't have that concern like a lot of people do, but that line that, well, they're home, so they're going to be doing work. So they're going to be in front of the computer. That expectation can't be there.
Well, I think the word here for me is like empathy, right? It is, I can come alongside you in some version of the experience. I can't certainly be you and know everything, but it is, hey, I see what you're going through and I understand why it's hard. And so given the fact that we care and we want you to succeed and thrive at blank organization, what does that look like? And so I think it's a great lead in, Jennifer, to this question, right? As we sit here and talk about everything that's going on, the question here is like, what can we collectively, and I think I would say we as the people on the panel, but like we, the marketplace, we in roles of analysts, roles of leader, roles as manager, roles as executives, right? Like what can we collectively do to create more opportunity for women to build careers in data and technology? And I say this, I'm particularly interested, the organization we build here, our vision is to equip and inspire the next generation of data and technology leaders. And so this is a passion point of mine, of how do we get more people and more diverse thought into this space so that we come up with better solutions that have greater impacts.
I'll say it's a passion point for me as well. Dinushki and I have sat for a long time talking about just this topic and reasons we started for data, but I can't help but to like pause on like what Karen just said. Like my heart just bleeds right now and I feel emotional about this because everything that you're saying, I maybe experienced a tenth of that because I wasn't sitting and helping them read, but like my husband can't work from home. So where did it fall? It fell on me. And I changed 2 jobs in that amount of time. So to answer your question, I think it's everything Karen's saying. Like I don't, to support women, to create more opportunities, sure, we need to, like I said before, that early exposure is key. We need to educate. We need to empower, right? That's what me and Dinushki's kind of key mantras are, is, you know, it's exposure, educate, empower, and encourage women, because you need to know that you're not doing this alone, and that you have that support of the community behind you. But honestly, it's policy. It's policy that makes sense for families, not just women, because while we're offering our perspective, I'm sure we could come up with a handful of men, like Karen and I were saying, like, so it's policy that supports family. I'm thankful that JLL has been amazing. Just since just since the start of the year, I went through COVID. It passed through our family. We had the nasty stomach bug, like TMI, I guess, but like the amount of impact we've felt has been significant in 3 months as compared to the prior 2 years. And thank God I've been with JLL, because I have an organization and leadership that's right there with me. You know, you do what you need to do. Take care of you first. Take care of your family first. It should be that simple, because let me tell you, the biggest motivator for any employee is knowing that, one, they have support both in their work life and extending into the personal life, that if something comes up, I've got a safety net. You know, you've got my back, and I can go do what needs to be done. The same, like when I worked as a compensation analyst, that what is the best pay for an employee? It's when they suddenly they don't have to think about it anymore. It's no longer a conscious thing. Good policy and supporting women is when suddenly we aren't having these conversations anymore. When it just makes sense. Because yeah, I would work till 10 o'clock at night if I knew that I would give that extra. You know what I mean? If it was a culture that supported me and I felt like they were doing everything for me, I would do the same, you know? So not a solid answer, but.
Love that. I hear trust, right? And feeling like there's safety here. Whatever the organization is, right? Like, you know, life can happen, and it means I still have a job tomorrow, and you don't hate me, and you know, you actually you find out that I'm actually human, just like you. So yeah.
I am going to jump to some of the Q&A questions right now. So if anyone has questions, in your Zoom, if you go to Q&A, we are going to be fielding the questions in there. So if you had some, stick them in there. I'm gonna jump to a question that says, and I think a lot of you might have something to say about this. Those of you with children, have you ever felt discriminated against in your career because of deciding to have children?
I've been talking a lot, but I'll answer this right away, because never as a pregnant woman with twins did I picture leaving a job at 8 months pregnant, but I did it because I had to, because the policy that I became aware of, and the course that I knew things were going to take if I had stayed at the job that I was at, I didn't feel comfortable or safe. So I interviewed at 8 months pregnant, and I took a chance on starting a new job, because, you know, in the US, pregnant women and prior medical leave or prior medical things don't fall under FMLA. So I was 100% not covered taking a new job. So it was not only a risk on my end, but a risk for the employer to take me on. But it was just that bad that I had to take that leave. So to answer that question, yes. And no, that wasn't Unifund. Just to be fair, I landed at Unifund and I stayed for 5 years. Kevin in the chat wanted me to make sure you all know that Unifund was my home.
I have like I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to jump in and ask if anyone else had a similar answer, but go ahead.
I was only going to say, I'll answer it like kind of the flip side. Just that, like, here's an example of a company that did something right around that. Okay. Like Chick-fil-A has like an incredibly long, like super lengthy interview process. That's like the CIA to get to work here. It's like 5 months, you know, you interview like 17 times. It's crazy. Like we lose a ton of candidates, but they really kind of put you through the ringer. And I started going through that process for the very fact that we already had one and we had a little one at home. Then in the process, I find out that I'm pregnant with our second. And so I was thrilled and had to kind of make the tough decision whether or not to share it with my potential new boss. And so I remember like I had a good feeling about Chick-fil-A, and I just felt like it may not work in my favor. And I may say this and maybe they don't hire me because of that, whatever. But if that's the case, I probably didn't want to work there anyway. So I just came out with it. But I'll tell you that like they hired me anyway, still allowed me to take the time off. And to this day, you want to talk about like why I worked every night until like 8, 9, 10, 11, like whatever o'clock for 2 years. It's because of that. Like why I will not leave Chick-fil-A. It's that like they have a very loyal employee of me that speaks highly of them because it's like they didn't have to do that. And I recognize it, and I'm very grateful.
Yeah, there are great companies out there. And to be fair, like I joked, but like Kevin was saying, Unifund, where Dinushki works, I met Kevin and Jeff Shaper. That was the place that I landed. They took me on 8 months pregnant with twins, and it was, I was there 5 years. It was one of the best places I've worked because they have good policy and they take care of their employees.
Well,
Yeah, it's so interesting to me. So I've had in the last 10 years, 2 women bosses, different places. So my previous boss was while I was having children, and she would complain about, we're talking about pumping for baby feeding. And she would say, granted, she did not have kids of her own, but she would say, do you really need to do this? Is it necessary? Right. And she'd get frustrated if, my mother-in-law called and said the baby's doing this or that. She's like, do you really need to talk to her about this right now? I was like, well, it's like, it's my child, right? And now I've switched to a boss who raised 2 children all by herself. Her husband was an addict and wasn't really around to support her. And her mode is, I think one day I told her, I said, yeah, my daughter's has a stomach bug. I was like, but she's okay. She's in bed with an iPad. She's good. She's like, sign off, go take care of her. She was like, that's more important. She's like, oh, we'll still be here later. So it was like night and day. And I was like, wow, I was like, I'm never leaving this place. Like, this is amazing. So it's funny to see the differences and approach, but yeah, I totally agree. If you find a place of work like that respects your family, that's everything. I will take a big pay cut for that personally.
One of the things we have talked about here is that the great resignation that is occurring is actually, I think, has so much to do with a rejection of bad leadership and a rejection of organizations that are not worth being a part of. And so it's really interesting to me to hear each of you speak to, when I was treated well, the loyalty that engendered in me to the company that served me well in that time is why I won't leave. And it's this, it is that important. And so I think that's a huge, for anybody who's in a position of leadership or in any way, like to come up with policies that are good for people, good for families, and so forth, because, never, I would say never before have the lines been so blurred between work and family. And I think we're all, I think we also have to remember too, like I was reminded that this last week is 2 years that, since like we went into kind of COVID lockdown. We've all been going through like this traumatic experience together for the last 2 years. And Karen, I remember being on the phone with you as you were going through the traumatic experience, and we felt terrible for each other in very different ways. And so there was a lot of commiseration for us in that season. But I love that y'all have all brought up, both the good and the bad, and ultimately, like, what does that mean trajectory wise for you at those organizations, depending on how the organization treats you. So I think that's super informative. One that is actually very dear to me, and I love the thoughts of the panel on this. So one of the conversations we are having at my workplace is regarding women and minorities experiencing imposter syndrome while working in tech. What are your experiences regarding this, and how do you deal with it? And I went through a very acute season of imposter syndrome. For those who are not aware of what it is, I'll just give a quick definition that I experienced and then kind of open it up for the panel. But imposter syndrome is this very weird feeling, even though you know what you're talking about, even though you've gone to school for this, or you've studied this, you've got years of experience. This weird feeling of being in a meeting or a moment or even prolonged season where you feel like, actually, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm actually an imposter, and I know it, and everybody else is going to find out soon, and they're going to find out that I really don't know what I'm talking about. And you just kind of have this like vicious mental cycle that just kind of takes you out. And for me, it was a season when we had our second kid, and I got into some just really difficult mental places. And it took about 3 months. It was very acute for about 3 months for me. And I know I'm not the only person who's gone through that. I know people go through years long seasons of this. So open the conversation up to anybody on the panel who's experienced this.
I can talk a little bit about this coming from, another country, a developing country, coming to the US. And I mean, I had my education, I was qualified for the degree that I was taking, and I was smart enough. But coming to America and like being in with this unfamiliar environment, unfamiliar culture, I absolutely had that imposter syndrome, right? Obviously I don't know as much as they know, like, I don't watch the same TV shows, I don't know the same music, and and you feel like I don't know as much as the people around me. But obviously through time, I also believe that it is about the people around you that help get you out of that. I work with amazing people, and my boss is open to hiring international students because he believes that they have a different viewpoint and how incredible to get those viewpoints. Whereas other companies say, oh, why would we hire this person when we could just find a citizen that, that we don't have to sponsor and whatnot. So, I mean, I definitely have had that imposter syndrome, but it is important to try to associate yourself with people that will help you come out of that and that will value your unique viewpoints and opinions.
To piggyback off of that, like, I think coming from the organization that Dinushki works at, working with Kevin and Jeff, and like we've already said, like it's just been this great place to work. My decision to leave was for several reasons, but like I just felt like I was ready for that next big opportunity. And where I landed, I've never in my life felt so insecure. If we want to call that imposter syndrome, whatever we want to call that, but I felt like if I was running against somebody that I was going to have to run twice as fast just to keep up. That's just what it felt like every day. And every conversation felt like I wasn't saying the right words. They weren't understanding me. It was just a disalignment. And it did take me some time to sit and think on it and process, because this was my big shot. I wanted to take on this big role. Why wasn't I happy? Was I just feeling insecure because it was different, after being somewhere for 5 years? But it really took a lot of self-reflection for me to sit here and to sit on it and think, like, what is causing me to feel this way? And I think something Dinushki said kind of sparked it in me. And I honestly feel like it was the people I was spending my time with, right? It was the surroundings that were causing me to feel suddenly really insecure. I didn't have the support network that I was accustomed to. I didn't have the communication styles that I knew. So I feel like there were just a lot of factors that created that for me. And in the end, I had to realize it wasn't a fit. Like, it was creating something in me and bringing out a side of me that wasn't my best, because everything I did, I was second guessing. So it took, I only was with the organization for 6 months. It was kind of, I need to make the hard decision to, maybe even less than that. I need to make the hard decision to make a move. And I think that's why it's been a great opportunity for me at JLL. But yeah, I think it can happen based on your surroundings, and you just can't let it get yourself too far into your head about it, I guess. And like Dinushki said, find the people to help you get it out.
I love these answers, and I'm watching all the heads shaking yes when Dinushki said the surrounding yourselves from people, because my first thought was when I was changing careers back, coming from education into what has become what I'm doing now, and it has been a journey, but I was terrified. And I had that imposter syndrome because I would even hear, and I've told y'all this before, if you've been in ATUG any, I always hear, well, what are you going to do? You're just a teacher. And that can just be really loud in your head. Yeah, I taught math and statistics, but what do I know? I'm just a teacher. And what I found was, and this is why I'm here right now. It's the Tableau community I plugged into, and y'all have talked about Kevin Flerlich, who's here, and I'm so excited he's one of those people that championed me. I've had people who it just embraced me and said, oh, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I get what you're saying. And I didn't expect that. The first time I met Nelson, I'll never forget, because I almost thought he was kidding, because he's like, I would hire you. I'm going, is he kidding? Is it a joke? I feel like, and then the second part of my response, and I want to try to make it this short, but would be the same as you said, Jennifer. You also have to self-reflect. You really do need to turn it on yourself, to turn that mirror. Okay, what could I have said differently or done? Should I ask some other questions? And not to question yourself, but maybe just make sure that you're aligned with yourself and with other people, because the issue might not be, maybe they don't understand you, but it's not you misunderstanding them. It could be a lot of different things. So, we want to wrap this up in a big bow. We've had this amazing conversation, and so many little points that actually seem to keep coming back to the same main point. So I want to wrap this up to a point, and this is going to be open to everyone. But Jennifer, I do want to ask it first to you, and then everyone else can chime in. What gives you hope for the future?
Gosh, I think so many things. I feel like the community, beyond just like the Tableau community, but the data community, but to be part of conversations like this, to know that conversations like this exist. And like you said, Anna, to have people like Kevin and Dinushki, and there's so many more I could list, that have reached out just to show their support, that I think every time somebody does that, you go, okay, maybe I'm doing something right. I think it builds more confidence. It builds more network opportunity. So I think as long as these kind of conversations are happening, which I've truly enjoyed today, I think who knows what's the future may hold, right?
Go for it.
Okay. What gives me hope for the future is what I'm seeing today. I see so many boss women. I see people getting up on stage and advocating for other women. I see, just like empowerment, just glowing everywhere, and women empowering women, men empowering women. And that gives me so much hope. I see the light at the end of the tunnel. This is going to be a normal thing for people in the Western world, and also the developing countries that don't see this as often. And I just hope that we are able to grow this to that part of the world as well.
Karen, Nancy?
I totally agree with everything y'all were saying. And I feel like, as hard as the last few years have been, we learned a lot.
Mhm.
And I feel like the job market's good, and I think women should feel empowered right now that if you have the skills, it's pretty much wide open. And I feel like that gives me a lot of hope, because I think if there's ever been a time where there were opportunities for women and there were some family friendly opportunities out there, it's now. And that makes me happy and excited for like my girls, because that's what I want for them.
I agree, Karen. And I'm also noticing from my side, I work in a company where most of the executives are men, or I think all of these senior executives are men. And I've seen them in the last year completely change how they think about remote work. They were very against it. They said, we're worried that women are going to fold their laundry, they're going to feed their kids, and they're not going to be working. And instead, they've seen higher productivity. And I fell off my chair when my executive called me and he said, I'm just so impressed with how much more women get done at home, working from home. He's like, he's like, and I think it's because you're not worried about, did someone get your kid from the school bus? Did your kid eat lunch? He's like, you're not worried about that. So you're able to focus. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly it. It's like, my brain is in one place at home, and I it's my control zone, right? Like it's all together. So that gave me a lot of hope that he opened up and told me that.
Being here, obviously, it's an amazing opportunity to be in the presence of you six ladies. Y'all are an inspiration, certainly to me and to the group that's been here today. I've loved hearing and learning a lot with y'all. There's one thing I have a tweet from Adam Grant that I hold very dear on imposter syndrome. So I wanted to speak to that real quick, and then I'll begin to kind of close this out. Adam speaks and he says, imposter syndrome is a paradox. Others believe in you. You don't believe in yourself, and yet you believe yourself instead of them. If you doubt yourself, shouldn't you also doubt your judgment on yourself? When multiple people believe in you, it might be time to believe in them. So I think one of the things that has been really, really fascinating about all this is I think that the conversation here is just in organizations, it's becoming a more human one. And I think the better we can have conversations like this and get these things on the table and just kind of say, hey, let's begin the conversation by saying, hey, what's best for people is what's best. And we may not be there yet, but how can we collectively get there while still doing these business critical things and yet taking care of our people? And so my hope is that we end up with just more empathetic conversations. And I think for all of us, it's the opportunity to create an environment in which people can raise concerns, whatever they may be, and feel like it's done in a safe way, so that you're not losing that psychological safety and you have the trust in the leadership and trust in the organization, and so forth. And so I think that's the responsibility that we all have to one another. And my hope is that more and more organizations are rising to that occasion, where we see whoever it is that sits on the other side of us as somebody's precious child. We just want to take care of them as we would our own kids. So
this has been probably one of my favorite ATUGs we've had. I really appreciate your time. For those of you who first of all, if you're just here listening, thank you for coming. Thank you for staying. Thank you for the questions, and especially our panelists for taking the time to sit here and just open up to everybody, because it's really not easy to sit here and talk about these things. So we wanted this to be that safe place, and I appreciate everybody for allowing that. If you check your the comments, and there's links in there right now of ways you can get plugged into ATUG. So if this was your first time, this is definitely a different version than we normally have, because normally we are talking more Tableau, but every March this is how we like to roll. And so far, I feel like, to answer that last question, I think that we've even seen progress since the first time we started doing this panel. So I feel like the conversation has shifted in a positive direction. So check out both the Tableau and Alteryx user group information in the chat. And I will say, Karen Nelson, if there's anything else you want to add for ways we can get plugged in or reminders for what we got coming up.
Conference people, register, make it happen. Come to Vegas.
Yeah, I hope we see a whole bunch of ATUG folks at conference. I'm looking forward to it. And we'll definitely share, like, we'll definitely do a session recapping and highlighting a lot of what we learned after TC 22. But I just want to say thanks to Nancy and Dee and Jennifer, because this was awesome. And thanks Anna Nelson for hosting. It was really cool. This was really great.
I appreciate y'all. This was great. And of course, Jen, who was, when Nelson said 6 people, Jen's in the background. She's also giving us comments and helping us out through here. So, so thank you to her as well. And there was a question, will there be TC 22 shirts? Well, we know Tableau will have them, to be determined on, we'll have to kind of a conversation on that end. We will keep you posted on more things to come. So follow those links, copy and paste them, because the chat's going to go away once we go away. So copy and paste those links somewhere so you can find out more information as things come up.
And tell Cincinnati Tug they're welcome anytime.
Anytime.
Just as long as they're willing to acknowledge the ATL is.
We're coming back soon, so you guys would have to join our tug soon.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Done.
He said ATL is second best. Kevin.
Say that at all, actually. I've actually never uttered those words in my entire life.
No, it's Kevin.
But I'm not starting now.
Oh,
Thanks
wow.
again, everybody.
Thanks
Thanks
y'all.
for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Bye, y'all.